It's really, really nice to be here, and I'm really sorry before I start about if anybody was here kind of a couple of weeks ago and my all my Wi-Fi went, all my phone signal went, everything went, so it was just an absolute nightmare. So I just really apologise for that, and just really nice to be here. And actually it's really nice because there's a few faces and people that I know that I've connected with as well. I'm already feeling a bit under pressure, Rob, because this is a built upon version of a talk I think you've already heard me do, so no pressure on that. So I'm just going to share the screen and start a presentation, and then I'll tell you a bit about myself as well as a way of hello. So can everyone see that first of all?
Yep.
Yes. Perfect. Okay. Oh, albeit there we are. So you can't see all of this, but it basically says, should we schedule our next Zoom meeting or just hit ourselves repeatedly in the head with a hammer? And this really resonated with me, particularly probably a few months ago when I think we were all adjusting to kind of this new way of working. I certainly had Zoom overload and had to kind of have a bit of a word with myself. And as individuals, we're continuing to feel a bit of uncertainty and probably exhaustion actually about some new ways of doing business. And although we've kind of probably settled into a bit of a new way of working, there's still, we still actually don't know where all of that's kind of going to land. It's been quite hard at times. Obviously there's been winners and losers, and we talked about that at the beginning. But actually, in terms of what we're talking about today, I think this is a really good opportunity, because I think what was potentially happening is we kind of were just going about our normal ways of working, and what lockdown and the kind of ongoing uncertainty has done has given us a really great opportunity to just review what we do, how we do it, and actually what's the best way. And you'll hear me use the word intentional a few times. It's one of my words, but actually it's given us a chance to be really intentional about what it is we're trying to get out of the interactions that we have with other people. So in terms of my business, so I'm based in Lyndhurst. I worked for 17 years for John Lewis and Waitrose in a variety of different roles, ending my time with them as a senior HR business partner in head office for Waitrose. And I've been kind of going it alone for a couple of years, just hitting my stride really when lockdown happened. And given that I do events with kind of 50 employees in a room, obviously that stopped overnight. So I'm still doing a lot of work with teams just to try and get them back together. So my kind of 3 key things that I'm doing right now is getting teams back on an even keel, building some empathy back into teams so that they can kind of work well together. And then 2 things which I've done since lockdown actually, which I'm really proud of, is just some community stuff for small business owners. So #ConnectUp, we meet monthly. That was this morning. People just come for some support. It's not networking, it's not selling, it's just bring your stuff and let's help each other. And then I'm launching Consortium, which I'll talk a bit about later on, but that's kind of some self-development for small business as well. So today I thought what we'd do is just kind of hit pause and just have, as I say, a bit of a chance to kind of look at opportunity. So we'll talk about context, talk about kind of good connections, so interactions and relationships, the challenges then with remote and virtual, building and maintaining relationships. And then I've just got some sort of top tips that I've picked up through kind of various thought leaders, different people that kind of work in that space, as well as my own experience around virtual communication and digital meetings, because those are obviously two different things. And then we'll do a close and then kind of an open up or any questions. So let's just take a moment to just think about the previous few months. So things have changed and impacted. Have a think about what's changed and impacted you in this communication space since February. The way you work, the way you interact with others. This time has changed people and their relationship with work, life, and work life. And actually work life, as we can all see, we're all seeing into each other's worlds now. The work life thing has become much more blended. Today's context in terms of this, some of you may have teams, and obviously a lot of this will be relevant for you with teams, but I've also been really mindful that, I don't have a team, but actually I have a bunch of people that I'm reliant on to help me do my work well. So I have, social media, I have website people, I have, you might have a manufacturer, a supplier, etc. And actually for the purpose of today, I'm kind of encouraging you to think of them as your virtual team. WorkHuman, who do sort of data recognition, showed that there was a change in language through lockdown. So the beginning of lockdown, words such as continuity, flexibility, resilience, adversity were kind of all over the place. And that's moved to words like friend, kindness, connectivity, compassion. And I think it's really important to think about the fact that we are actually all responsible for each other. And people are looking for kindness and they're looking for connection. Digital's here to stay. So how can we make that really work for us? So just take a minute for me to think about what makes a good interaction. So forget about virtual and physical. What makes a good interaction for you? So potentially what might be coming up is some of these words. So good listening, empathy, maybe building mutual ground, genuineness and trust, and building rapport. And actually the same goes for virtual relationships as well. All of those words are still relevant. The challenges of meeting those needs might be slightly different, but actually the requirement is still there in whatever way we're communicating with each other. More and more people I'm speaking to at the moment are saying that they are struggling to feel heard on digital meetings such as this one. Not this meeting, but this type of event. People are feeling maybe that they're not being listened to. People on the receiving end might be a bit distracted. And actually, if we were in a physical room with each other, that would equally be something that would kind of stop that connection happening in a meaningful way. So I'm going to talk a little bit just about the general stuff and just use today, just this first couple of slides to just talk about this is relevant whether it's physical or virtual, and then we'll move into the virtual space. So let's just think about rapport. So rapport is exactly the same virtually and not, and so worth thinking about in terms of mutual attentiveness. So you're both focused on and interested in what the other person is saying. Positivity, so you're friendly, happy, and you show care and concern for the other person. And coordination, so you feel kind of in sync with one another so that you share common understanding. So your energy levels, tone, body language are similar. And of course, body language is probably one of the challenges, which we'll talk about a bit later on in terms of virtual. And in terms of building rapport, let's just take a moment to just remember the basics. So it's about smiling, relaxing, remembering names, being attentive, listening, creating shared experiences. So working collaboratively to define problems, devise solutions, and design strategies. Be empathic, and mirror and match. And again, that's more challenging physically when you're doing it virtual, but actually, you know, there is a way that you can still do that by kind of being moving your body and kind of using your body in different ways. How you say things is really important, and actually it's probably more important when that's the main kind of sense that's coming through, is kind of what people are saying. So we know about relationships needing the know, like, trust mantra, and relationships need good communication. We've talked about that already today. Be mindful of difference. Commitment and accountability kind of together moving forward for whatever it is that you're meeting to discuss. And trust is a really key one as well. So credibility, what skills do I have that demonstrate my credibility? Reliability, do my words and actions match? Can people rely on me? Intimacy, so what's my rapport like with the other person? Am I comfortable being humble? Am I comfortable asking for help? And self-orientation, so do I do more talking than I do listening, and am I genuinely interested in that other person? So the challenges of virtual then. So we don't always say what we mean. So if we think about an email or a text, for example, there are real nuances that could be missed within that communication. And think about how you feel sometimes if you get an email, and the difference between if it's been sent to you with a "Hi Joe," or it looks like a mass one, you're CC'd, you're blind copied, maybe it's a reply all. There's some kind of nuances there with virtual communication which wouldn't be there if you were having a conversation with that person. 75% of face-to-face collaboration is non-verbal. So you're missing quite a lot if you're not face-to-face. And again, how can you bring some of that face-to-face stuff into your communication? And studies show that with virtual, we misunderstand quicker. We speak more freely, so we might show less empathy. We actually argue more, and we walk away faster. So again, when I'm talking about virtual here, I'm not talking just about Zoom, I'm talking about email, text, WhatsApp, or all kinds of other ways of communicating. So you might kind of have an email that really annoys you, and actually it's within your rights to kind of shut that email down and walk away, which you are unlikely to do if you're in a room with someone. And we're much more easily distracted. So you've heard this probably before. The brain takes in 11 million bits of information per second, but can only process 50. And our attention drops faster and further during digital meetings. So the sort of meeting we're having now, further and faster. So psychologically, a virtual interaction a bit like this one, psychologically is actually a low trust environment. So we can't see people's hands, and actually we like to be able to see people's hands. It signals trust to us. There's non-direct eye contact, and we've all kind of struggled with that probably in terms of, you know, where am I looking? That signals low trust to us as well. There's sometimes illegible or ignored facial expressions, and your voice can change as well. So all the normal cues that we'd be using aren't there. And I've said before, it's a really high distraction environment as well. And I don't know about you, but it happens all the time where you're maybe in a meeting, and you know, people are maybe looking over here, or you see them pick up their phone. Actually, they'd probably be unlikely to do that in the room with you, but they've got distractions going on, and there's some kind of wall between, you know, maybe what would be acceptable and what wouldn't. So let's just take a few minutes to think about building and maintaining the relationships. Just some things to think about here. So first of all, how are people feeling? This experience that we've been through, and in fact are continuing to go through, has been intensely personal and very individual. Remote work doesn't suit everyone. Some people say they've got a better balance. Some say, actually, I've got no off switch whatsoever. We were talking at the beginning of the call about, you know, energy levels and kind of resilience levels. I think most people I'm talking to are really knackered. Some people's businesses have flourished. Some have, you know, stopped. Everybody's, you know, people have had children at home, parents, they're looking after all sorts of things. So how are you checking in with people? How important is it to you that other people care about and acknowledge what's going on for you in the background? Don't just let things drift or ignore this important piece, because how can you build rapport, trust and empathy and listen to each other if you're ignoring the really real stuff that's going on for people? And that's not about making people share things they're not comfortable to share, but it's just about checking in with them and kind of showing that human piece. And actually it's a perfect way to build mutual ground, as I know you find in this environment. Actually, if you're all feeling the same thing and kind of supporting each other with that. So second, are your norms working? Does the way you've always worked still serve you in this new context? So just consider that for a moment. How do you collaborate? How do you get ideas? How do you share your worries? Who do you need with you? And how do you get them there? Some futurists are saying the phrase change or die has never been more true. And a lot's changed already, but I just wonder whether this is an opportunity to really consider how we do things. Some of the frustrations and pain points may be due to the fact that we're almost trying to replicate how we used to work and kind of shoehorn it into this new medium. And actually, that might not be the best approach. Are you being clear on direction, roles, and strategy? So for the business, short term, what are your priorities right now? And are you clear on why they're the priorities? Longer term, are you really clear on your destination? Do you need some time to kind of pause and reset things from you? Are you reacting or are you responding? And in terms of the context for today, for your individuals and collaborators that you kind of rely on to be successful, are they clear on your priorities? And are they clear on why they're your priorities? Do they know what you need from them? And do they know why you need it from them? Perhaps you need them to play a slightly different role or deliver things in a slightly different way. Have you defined this for them and have you told them? How do you best communicate? So more on this in a moment, but a reminder that Matthew's already said it, communication is key. Don't assume, and if anything, over communicate. You could be unsure how to communicate because there's quite a lot of difficult messages going on right now. And certainly there's a few leaders I've been speaking to who are finding it quite easy to do nothing because it's a bit scary and it's a bit difficult. Obviously that's the wrong move. The best thing to do is just be honest, open about what's going on. Try and be open about the way people can help you and try and bring them with you. And part of this topic is also about how can you build in the informal, the personal, and just ask what will work. You don't need to kind of try and find new ways just for yourself. Actually, relationships, you know, just ask what's working for you. Consider what the best virtual, so if it's going to be virtual, there's that intentional word again, you have a responsibility if you want that interaction to be a good one to really think about what the best one is. So is it a virtual meeting? Is that a team or a one-to-one? Is it an email? Is it a newsletter? Is it a pre-recorded video that you can send out? Is it a phone call, a good old-fashioned phone call? Is it live chat? Is it WhatsApp? I'm using the WhatsApp, just recording your voice and sending that quite a lot at the moment. It's a really nice personal way to send text, basically. Is it a distanced walk? As much as we're saying don't go along with kind of the old norms and shoehorn them, I think there's also a message around don't just go along with new habits as well. So, you know, I've done it myself. Let's just jump on a Zoom. Let's just jump on a Zoom. And actually you end up with 8 Zooms in a day. And half of them didn't need to be Zooms. They could have been a phone call. They could have been a walk. So just have a think about what's the right channel in terms of the length, complexity, familiarity. How do you include everyone? And as I've said before, with relationships, it's not all about work. We know that. How can you build in that personal stuff? So let's assume then that we've built some rapport, we've got trust, we want to keep that going. We're clear on our direction, strategy, and what you need from that other person. And you're being really considered about how you communicate. So what next? So keep checking in. Is this working? Is this working for you? How should we chat next time? Do we need to do a Zoom, or shall we pick up on the phone while I have a walk? Make time for the personal, so show interest, show a bit of vulnerability. It goes such a long way, and show some real care. What do you need to work on? So do you need to work on trust, empathy, emotional intelligence, accepting difference? Be clear on what you need. Manage your boundaries. Who and what do you need to stay positive and on track? I'm having a lot of conversations at the moment about this kind of resilience and energy piece, and actually really consider how you're going to show up in the best way for that other person. How much is too much? How many meetings can you have while being the best you? And what do you need to be the best you? So virtual communication, just some kind of top tips here. And this again is not talking just about Zoom and Microsoft Teams. This is talking about all sorts of virtual with a typo. Anybody spotted that? That's an attention to detail thing. So brevity causes confusion. So work around the pressure you may feel to communicate quickly. Clarity over brevity. Communicate your mind. I don't know if you've heard that phrase, but communicate your mind. So what's the ask? What's the priority? Why? And think about the feelings you're going to conjure up when people can't read the body language. So just think about how you might respond to a text that says all those different forms of okay. Hold your horses, less haste, more speed, proofread things. Assume positive intent, so give benefit of the doubt. So as much as you can do for the other person, just bear in mind kind of what's going on for them. They might be missing some of these top tips, and actually I'm sure they haven't done it on purpose. They've probably just got other stuff going on. So assume positive intent. And find your voice, so find ways that you're comfortable to use and be really proactive about that. So it might be the chat function, it might be video, it might be email, it might be telephone. If you're being intentional, actually, what do you need out of that interaction, and what's the best way that you're going to show up for that interaction? Digital meetings, so Zoom, Microsoft Teams, etc. So connecting to the I how does it affect me, and me being the audience? How does this affect me, and what does it require of me? Emotional connection is really important. So think about stories you can tell, think about showing some vulnerability. Use tangible and clear language and ensure understanding. Make things memorable. We particularly remember the beginning and the end of an interaction, so place key messaging there. And the brain also likes repetition. What can you make visual? So 55% of attention is there. And as I said earlier, can you show your hands? Can you stand up and get some energy into your body when you're talking? Think about regular breaks, even if they're short. And do a check-in at the beginning that's about human connection. Encourage the positive and the negative. This signals that honesty is okay and that it's kind of a safe space maybe in that environment. So in terms of a summary, recent events have opened up opportunity to think about how we connect and build relationships intentionally. Take the opportunity to review how you do things and ask people what works for them. An opportunity to be intentional, focus on what you need, spend time on building the relationship, and remember to look after you as well. I think too often maybe we're responding to others and not thinking about how we can show up in the best way for ourselves. So that's a bit about me. I've got a couple of things going on at the moment. So I'm doing some stuff with bringing teams back together. I've done a collaboration with Holborn at Bashley with their woodland centres. So when people can get back together physically, we're going to be running some team events there. And I would just really love to pick up with you on #ConnectUp or Connect Up Consortium. Love to see you at the launch event on the 22nd if you can be there. And that's it. I think I've rattled through that. So any questions or anything anybody wants to say?
Great. Thanks very much indeed, Jo. And lots to think about there, but I'm sure there's some reaction. You've got a room full of communicators, but also a room full of people who get communicated to an awful lot. So who'd like to kick off with an observation or a question? Angie, go for it.
Jo, that was fantastic. Thank you. I think it's really good to actually sit back and have some time to think about yourself as well. I think that's probably the one thing that none of us on this call have probably given any thought to, because we've literally just reacted to go and look after clients, find customers, whatever it is we've had to do, we just had to do it. So I think you're absolutely right. Not only are they tired, we've all got a bit exhausted with it, a bit brain drained while we're learning all these new skills as well. I think it's interesting what you've said about the team space. I've actually come off a coaching call this morning where I'm talking to their new director. It's someone I'm already working with. And the biggest issue he's had, it transpires, he's not had a team meeting at all. He's actively avoided them. He's been telling me he's doing them, and I know he isn't, but you can't really accuse him of not. But I've now had it confirmed today with his new director that his last team meeting was February. So he hasn't had one since lockdown. And it's going to be an interesting conversation with him to find out why not, because he's a really affable, lovely guy. I know he's struggled in lockdown, and he certainly has been missing deadlines. Now, potentially, his job's on the line, and he doesn't know this, and that's a big issue, massive issue now. So I'm going to have to find a way to try and get him to understand that he's going to have to find a route through this somehow. And the walks are excellent. A lot of my clients are doing that now. They're taking their teams for walks in woods or wherever and having coffee outside. And it's really been quite powerful, just asking how people are. Forget the work side of it, just ask them if they're okay. Because a lot of them aren't, actually. You're absolutely right, they're not. So
it really has, and actually some of the work I've been picking up now is kind of almost pre-team build. Let's just come together and build some empathy. So I'm facilitating some stuff around that, and because I think, you know, even if you do find budget for a team building day when you're allowed to do one, there's a lot of latent kind of resentment, guilt, bad feeling, good feeling, worry. You know, you can spend loads of money bringing everyone together, but actually you're going to leave the event, you know, potentially equally disgruntled. So I think that empathy piece, and the leader you've described, I think, you know, he's not alone. I think there's some avoidance going on. It's too difficult.
I think it's almost a denial that we're in this space, and it's almost let's just hope it gets back to normal, then I won't have to worry about it. And of course, we all know that this is our new world right now. So yeah, I'm a big believer that we need to do more of this. In fact, I'm doing one next week. It should have been physical workshop. It's now going to be virtual. And I've had to redesign it because it is, rather than being a team building, as you say, it's more pre-team to bring, because not everyone's been together for obvious reasons. So yeah, but thank you, Joe. It was excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Angie. Joe, just a thought while others are preparing to ask. I mean, I'm getting asked now about our October, November program of events, and can they just be switched to being online rather than face to face? So it's not a question about that. That's a decision we'll make. But people are saying to me, but I need to know now because it's a different presentation if I'm giving it online. Now, I was 20 years a teacher. I would give the same presentation through whatever medium. So I wonder how different does a presentation or the way you put yourself across need to be online when it should just be authentic and be.
So yeah, so I'm the same as Angie. I've moved some stuff online and changed it. I think it depends what you're presenting. So if you're presenting kind of fact, then that's probably quite easy. I think there's certain things where you need the vibe in the room and you need to be quite physical. I'm quite a physical kind of trainer, but also just those pieces there, you know, about actually, you know, it probably needs to be more visual. You probably want to think about how long you're going without a break. You know, if people are doing some brainstorming, I'll be saying, actually, let's just turn the video off and go for a wander for a minute while you're doing the brainstorming. You know, this medium, it's interesting because I think in some environments it's putting a barrier, but then in other, and I don't know if you found this, Angie, with your coaching, but actually then in other arenas it's really intimate and people are being much more open and much more emotional. So, you know, people react differently than they would if they were in the room. You kind of can't hide on here.
I would agree with that. In fact, I had an interesting conversation with someone a couple of days ago about this in the coaching space, that they were finding that people were opening up more than perhaps they would normally in a room because they're in their own home, in their own space, and they just feel slightly more secure. It's quite odd. They probably would have done it anyway, but it's coming out quicker. And I found this with a new person I took on during lockdown. I've only met them briefly and said hello to before, so don't really know them. And they got very upset and very emotional. And it was hard for me because that's the first time I've had that where I haven't been able to put a reassuring hand on someone. But even if I'd been in the room, I wouldn't have been allowed to do that anyway. And I think it's just getting over that change of how we actually work. So I would agree with that. I think there is a lot more intimacy that comes through with this if you can build that rapport. But I've found with the body language, because I'm very high energy, sitting down to do a workshop's really difficult for me because I like moving around, so that's quite hard. I've got to get over that.
Well, don't worry, Angie, you've only got 11 minutes till your next workout. So Nikki, you had a comment.
Well, I was going to say, just following on from that, I did my first virtual spa at the weekend of 3 hours with strangers, and it was very, very chilled. I didn't think I was going to be able to relax, but I was like, we'll see how we go. And it actually worked really well. But that just, that thing you were saying, Joe, about basically not being able to escape and you're there, they had like a sharing circle. 12 strangers sharing bits about their life and how they were feeling was just, you're thinking that's never going to work. But actually, it really wasn't. Some of them got incredibly upset with everything that's going on and stuff as well. So I think, it's quite an interesting take on it. I thought your presentation was brilliant. I really, really love the fact that piece about whether we're reacting or responding to change, because quite a lot of the work that we do with businesses, when we look at a kind of what's the constant about the kind of the businesses we work with, it's usually that they are going through change anyway, before all this. Anyway, it's something that we've got a lot of experience with. But I think that kind of the switch between reacting or responding, I don't think people have really thought about it in that sort of way. They're just thinking, okay, hang on a second, what do we need to do? And I suppose it depends on your personality type as to whether you think, hurrah, it's gung-ho, it's all new, or just oh God, I've got to do this and I'm not really sure I want to, but I'm there. So I thought, you raised some really, really brilliant points. And I also loved as well, because obviously we do an awful lot of content, we do a lot of writing, and so actually when we're doing those kind of messages, even just in a kind of written form, we have to still think of that kind of empathy, emotional honesty, the integrity, how clear you're communicating. And I just think it's interesting, that now, I haven't really thought about it, but in this sort of virtual world, it's an awful lot of the same skills of making sure that it works. So yeah, it was really good. Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Elaine's had her hand up. Great.
Go for it.
Yeah, Joe, lovely to meet you. I'm actually a friend of Alice Smead from Holborn, so it's good to meet you in person.
Lovely to meet you.
One thing I just want to, there's nothing wrong in showing your vulnerability, is there? I think it's very interesting that you bring that up, because I think a lot of people do struggle with that, but it does make you human. And I do think it does help you to connect. It's not being not false or whatever. I just think that was a really good point. And the other thing is, just for you, Matthew, actually, is something called netwalking. When we are able, being outside, I think for mental health, to actually exercise and talk to each other, it certainly kept me sane through this. And maybe that's a way forward, with a walk through the New Forest in some format that we could all do and get together.
There is a group that does that. I think, Rob, you're in.
Yeah, I've been on a few of their walks. Unfortunately, I've had to drop out recently because of shielding requirements in my household. But Donna Nasayev, based over in Ashurst, Growth, has been doing some lovely networking events around the woods around Ashurst. Been on several of them.
I was going to say, there's a group that does some near Moores Valley as well. And we were just about to set up some networking actually near the Fordingbridge area just as it hit lockdown. So we've kind of shelved them, but I think we'll just see how the next fortnight goes.
Absolutely.
And then, if it doesn't all go completely pear-shaped, then we'll kind of start ours again.
It'd be really nice when we've all,
with the walking. I like that idea, because I know
when we've all met as a group here online, it would be lovely as the New Forest Business Partnership for us all to meet soon. So
as long as we walk socially distanced, we'll be fine.
I can also recommend sitting on a yacht in the sunshine with a glass.
that sounds good, Matthew.
Yeah, I like that one. Matthew, can you be in charge of that one?
I'll do my best, yeah.
Just on that point, Elaine, I think it is really interesting when you think about, there's quite a few people I've built a really amazing relationship with over the last few months, and we've never met in real life. And groups like this, there might be people that, you've seen week after week. And I think that's really, really, I don't know where I'm going with that. It's just an observation. I think it's really interesting. Who would have thought that?
Has it surprised everyone how deep a relationship you can get online, though? Because it surprised me that people, as you say, people around the world that I would probably in normal situation, our paths would have never crossed. And now, because of this, I suppose this is the plus side of this environment, that you get to meet all these people, and you do feel like you've known them a long time, even though you've never ever met.
I suppose it shouldn't surprise us, because in the old days, which you're all too young to remember, we used to write letters, and we used
still
to be quite personal in those. You just read books of letters, and that's what people were doing. So, but it was at a distance. You would write something, and sometimes people are recommended in therapy to write down and to use a journal and so on. So, I'm sure there's something about the distance, yet still the closeness that comes in that. So
maybe we try harder because we can't take that for granted anymore. You think about the amount of random relationships that you build when you meet people if you're out and about, and that's the thing, of course, it's been removed and there's all been restricted, so
surely you're not talking about random LinkedIn connections there at all.
No, I've only had a couple of dodgy ones, but no, not really.
I've already had my daily sales one.
Oh yeah.
Can we connect so I can sell to you?
I was just going to say, actually, Angie, I think that's one of those things as well. Everybody, well, I don't know for everybody, for us, up until 2 weeks ago, I run the business with my husband, and we were homeschooling a 6-year-old. And so time was just mental. I mean, we were doing 16, 17-hour days. It's been absolutely full on. It's been nuts. And so basically, if you're signing up for an hour or you've got a 2-hour meeting or whatever, even within this sort of virtual environment, you get to the stage of like, actually, well, it's got to be worth my time, because I just don't have time to waste. And I think probably that has meant that actually everything's a bit more intense. You're on it. You get to know
Actually,
people
that's
really
a
well.
very good point. That's probably why we're all a bit Zoom fatigued, isn't it? At the end of the day, when it first happened, I was doing a bit like you, Joe. I was booking in 5, 6, 7 meetings, thinking this is fine. I haven't got to drive anywhere. I quickly stopped that because my brain was fried at the end of the day.
Very good. So we're coming towards the end. Just a quick hello and welcome back to Steve, who joined us last time, starting up your business. Do you want to just say a quick word about that?
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry I was a bit late there. Yeah, so Tousay is a business that I'm setting up, which is it's all about recognition, positive recognition. So we're trying to reduce customer effort, or the effort to do so. So through your phone, you can send a positive message to anyone in any business anywhere in the world instantly. So no more going through call centers or sending emails or filling out feedback forms. We're trying to make it a bit more personable. So, when you come across someone, a nurse, a barista that's doing a really great job, it's just to say thank you and well done. Every message gets copied into their line manager or manageress, and then every message forms into like a stored document, like a CV, which they can attach to the back of their CV. So basically you can prove that you do a great job. Whereas at the moment, I think personally that CVs are a little bit wanting. I mean, basically you can write what you want on a CV and nobody really checks it anymore. But so this will bring out the real person behind the CV.
Excellent. No, well, thank you, Steve. Lots of interesting stuff about that. So do, whenever you can join us, update us on the developments and how it's going and how we can support you with that.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're running towards the end of time. I want to thank Joe for getting us thinking and getting us reflecting, I think is the important thing there, as we busily connect with each other. Thank you for that, and do keep in touch with us and join us again if you can. If you have another thought that can be stretched out into 19.5 minutes, that'd be fantastic. You're very welcome here. I've got a very long calendar for the next year to fill up some gaps, and people are enjoying taking that hour out on a Wednesday afternoon and joining us and being inspired and having the opportunity to reflect. But thanks very much, Joe. Perfect connection all the way through. So that was excellent. So next week, Frances joined us a couple of times in the last few weeks, and she's offered a session on just sorting out your sort of planning around marketing. We're about to launch into our October social media training season, and it's all very well to get yourself trained up on social media, but you've got to have some kind of plan. You've got to have some idea about how you're going to go about it. But of course, for some of us, the thought of putting the plan together is a block. So Frances Fawcett is going to take us through some of the thinking around planning out your marketing before you get going on your marketing. And so that should be a useful session for us next week. And then a week later, Sam Sutton returns to take us into the murky world of Google My Business. Because there are some people who haven't got a clue what that means, and there are some people whose businesses are unclaimed and so on. So we want to just help you with a nugget of information around that. So that's the next 2 weeks, lots happening, lots of news, and there'll probably be a couple more updates from NFBP this week. As information comes to me, I'll send it straight out to everyone so that you don't miss out on all the wonderful largesse coming from Her Majesty's government at the moment.
Matthew,
so in the meantime,
can I just ask you a quick question? What's happening with the Business Awards this year?
Vicky and I, in about 2 minutes' time, are going to continue this Zoom to write a very sad press release that it is going to be postponed.
Oh, that's the first time. That's really sad.
It's 15 years of huge success. It just doesn't feel right to celebrate achievement this year. I intend to replace it with another event in December, all being well, which will acknowledge the efforts of many through this year. But it's not right for people to be forced to reflect on how successful they've been, which is essentially what the awards are. It's a show of success. And I want people to have the opportunity to bounce back and do that next year. But no, it's 15 years of 10 awards and lots of finalists and lots of effort. And normally we'd be launching around now, so we've got to say we'll do an Olympics, put it off a year, and see what happens. But I think we ought to do something to acknowledge a lot of hard work put in by a lot of people across the forest.
Well, you need to be top of this list, Matthew, for the amount of effort and work you put into
Well
these.
said, Angie.
And I'm serious about that, because I know I haven't been on all of them because sometimes I've had other things going on, but it's astounding the fact you're trying to run your businesses as well. So I think fair play to you, Matthew.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I will allow us an overrun for that, so that's fine. So thank you very much.
Well done, Angie.
If I could just keep back Rob, Sandeep and Vicky just for a moment.
Because we've been very naughty.
Yeah. And we'll see you all next week when we start planning our marketing.
Yeah.
That'll